Oh man, another week. Another week. We're getting close to 2025. Feels good. Oh, sorry. Just saw some news on Facebook. No mic on Wednesday. What? Good to be here. Thanks for joining another episode of the Weekly Daily Podcast, guys. It is I. It is me. I don't know what the correct what would you call it? The correct grammar would be for that, but I am here, and thank you for being here. If you're listening, another crazy busy. Actually, it wasn't that busy. It was nice. It was the Thanksgiving holiday. If you guys are familiar, pretty common if you aren't aware. But I had a lot of days to relax. Had some comedy. Had some just stuff. That's just what life is. If you want to put life in like a simple box definition, you're like, you just do some stuff and then you die. And that's life. Welcome to life. Do some stuff before you die. That'd be a good slogan for life. They should run that on commercials. Life. Do some stuff before you die. That's what I'm trying to do. Trying to live my life up. I'm very tired. I say that, it's a broken record. I am a broken record. But I went for a run this morning. Early morning run, 23 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, not Celsius. It was cold. And I'm proud of myself for getting up. I'll tell you what. Got up at 5:54. And I've said it before, I'm really bad at getting up early. And oh man, I feel lucky. Or I was kind of lucky in the sense that as I was sleeping, because over the last couple of days, I basically stayed up a little bit later than usual because I had like 4 days off. So I was sleeping in, staying up a little bit later. And so I tried to go to bed early last night, but it took a little while to go to sleep. And then I was planning on waking up at like 6:20 and then running. And I was like, man, I don't know. At some point during the night, I think I woke up or just like kind of 90% made my mind up. Like, I'm not going to go for a run. You guys know that when you're just like, you know what? I've made the decision. I've made the executive order that I'm not doing what I said I was going to do. I'm very good at that. I hate that. That's one thing. I actually do a lot of stuff, and I am pretty um, good about completing things at this point in my life that I really, if I set my mind to something, I'm pretty good at doing that thing, with the exception of if it's before 7 a.m. And what happened was I kind of made my mind up. I was like, I'm not going to go for a run. And then I had to pee. I woke up to pee. And literally, I got up to pee. It was 5:55. I had like 20 minutes left before my alarm was going to go off. And I was like, I'm not going to get up. I'm going to pee and go back. And as I was peeing, I was like, you know what? I'm up. Don't get back in that bed and we can do it. Step one is completed. You're up. You're out of the bed. Just put your running clothes on and go for a run. And that's what I did. And felt good. It was cold. It's dark. I took a little headlamp to the park, ran around with that sucker. Not many people out. I'll tell you that much. Not a lot of people. It's kind of creepy when it's dark, and I guess the cold doesn't really matter, but you're just bundled up. It actually matters a little bit because I had like earmuffs, whatever they're called. Like you guys know I'm not good with vocabulary words. Whatever that covers your ears to keep you warm. Some sort of headband thing. And so I had my headphones in, then I had that covering my ears, so I really couldn't hear anything. So it's like completely dark. I actually took one headphone out because I was like, I want to be able to hear a little bit. But I'm like running in the dark, and I'm just like looking behind me every 5 seconds, like, is somebody chasing me? But got the early morning run in, came back. It was very cold. Feels good. It always feels good if you accomplish something difficult in the morning, then you're like, all right, we're good to go, dude. My day is cake from here. Which, the older I get, the more it's like, yes, it feels good to run and you get the benefits from it. But also, I mean, I'm doing this during my lunch right now. And I'm like, man, I kind of want to just take a nap instead of recording the podcast. We'll see how interesting this pod is, given that I wanted to take a nap. I'll try to be interesting. I'm sweating, dude. It's hot. I have these little calf. Uh, Again, I'm really bad with vocabulary, but I have these calf um, leggings. That's not the official term for it, but it's like compression socks, or compression calf leggings, whatever. I guess they're not socks technically, but I've been wearing them after the run because I think that's supposed to help recovery or something. I don't know. And it's hot. These lights in here, I'm going to take this jacket off. I'm going to stop talking about it being hot and just be an adult and take a layer off. That's cool. That's the cool part about being an adult. You can take your jacket off if you're hot. When you're a kid, if you have a jacket on and you're hot and you're like, Mommy, I'm hot. Sometimes they're like, you're going to be hot. Okay? We're walking through the mall. No time to take that jacket off. I'm not carrying it. You're a kid. You don't have BO yet. At what age do kids get BO? Some earlier than others, but is it all like, I guess it's probably something that you can get at all times. That is a nice time though, to not, when you're like 6, you're not worried about, man, I think my crush in my first grade class smells my armpits right now. That was very much a fear for, most of high school, middle school, high school, college. Like if you forgot to put deodorant on, or even before you even use deodorant, you're just unknowingly walking around smelling terrible. But like in high school, in your most awkward stages, high school and like college, especially around like women, you're like, uh-oh, do I smell bad? That can be like the only thing you think about. I remember in high school for PE class, dude, this is disgusting to say, but we had I just took like a pair of clothes and did not, I'm not going to say how often I washed them. I did not wash them often enough. Now that I'm saying this out loud, I will not let you know that I may or may not have washed the clothes almost ever. That can't be true. That can't be true. But it might be true. It was, no, I'm sure I washed them, but it's one of those things where like, I just throw them in a locker for a PE class and then just like reuse them way too much. And those probably smell terrible. I still do the same thing with, it's very different. I'm not in a class, but when I go run, I'll just pull my running clothes out of like the dirty clothes hamper and reuse them quite a bit to where they're not smelling great. But also ideally I run almost every day. Right now with my knee, I'm not running every day, but it's like I'm not doing the laundry every day, okay? I tried for the longest time to do this joke about laundry and Tide Pods. Never figured it out, but I was basically talking about how Tide Pods, if you guys are familiar, it's, the little pods that you throw in as your laundry detergent, and how I use Tide Pods, and I like using Tide Pods. They're simple, and it's just super simple. Like on the little container itself, it has the instructions. It makes it super easy. It's like use 1 Tide Pod for a light load, 2 for a medium load, and 3 for a large load. And the joke that I tried forever was, hey, that's all good and well, but why don't you have instructions for how many pods I'm supposed to use when I'm trying to clean my entire wardrobe? Okay, I don't do laundry. I don't do laundry on a schedule. I do laundry when it's an emergency, when I have no clothes left. Now that I say that out loud into a microphone, I understand why that never got laughs, because there's not really a punchline in there. Maybe a little soft giggle at best. That's most of my jokes. You go, you know what, dude? I believe in this. I believe that this is going to get me to the next level. And then you say it out loud in a public forum, even though there's nobody around me. I can sense what I'm saying is going out to you guys. And then you go, oh, you know what? Now that there's like an extra layer of judgment there, I get it. It's not that good. It's not that funny. I remember doing that with the first joke. One of the first jokes I remember having like structure to and being like really excited about. I was like over a year into comedy. And I talked about this, I think, on the last podcast, but Jameson, uh, buddy of the pod, been playing a lot of video games with him recently. But Jameson. He's a comic. He used to live in Denver. He's moved out of Denver, living on the East Coast now. But he was the first guy who like I sat down with and we went through our writing process. And he was like, "You need to underline your punchlines." And that was like a level up moment for me, where I was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't have punchlines. I need to write. I need to start writing jokes." Um, and I remember shortly after that writing what I thought was an incredible joke. It was not an incredible joke, but it was like the first joke I remember writing with like structure, where I was like, here's like 4 or 5 paragraphs, and I've underlined the punchlines in each paragraph. And it was about running for president in 8th grade, which I've probably talked about on the pod before. I've tried to do that joke a million different times, different variations, different. I haven't fully figured it out. I should revisit it at some point, but I remember being so excited and proud of myself. Like, yo, I've just found a new closer. I've leveled up as a comedian. This is going to get me discovered, dude. People are going to know about Ben Dailey after they hear this hot bit on running for president. And boy, was I wrong. Sure, it was structured like a joke, but the punchlines were not good. And that's what most of comedy is, unfortunately. It's just like, well, it's the structure of a joke, but turns out it's hard to write good punchlines. Which I mean is good. It's easy to humble yourself constantly, where you're like, you know what? I've turned the corner. I'm pretty good at what I do now. So, pretty much everything I write is probably going to be like incredible. And then you do, 95% of your new jokes and you're like, "Oh, I stink. Am I a comedian? Am I even doing comedy?" But anyways, I digress. I went on a real tangent there. I don't know how I got there, but we're gonna go back to the little. I've started doing. I think I said this before. I've got some bullet points here, which I think it's good to. Rambling is probably. I don't know that it's super interesting, but it's probably as interesting, if not more interesting, than my little bullet points. But this is to keep me on track. I can go off onto little spiderweb tangents, and then I come back and I go morning run. Talked about it, but I did my morning run. Came back. It does feel nice to accomplish stuff in the morning. Got back, took a nice warm shower, which, you know what, the shower here, I'm used to it at this point. But basically I've just lived in not fancy places most of my life, and I've gotten used to, and it kind of stinks and it's a bummer, but the temperature on the shower is really difficult to control. Or it's not that it's difficult. It's not that I don't know what I'm doing. It's just you set it to a certain temperature, and then based on this apartment or whatever the case is, based on everybody else in here using the hot water or whatever the case is, it just like will fluctuate. And you'll be like, "Oh, it's scalding hot." And then you're like, "It's cold." Then you're like, "Oh, this is a comfortable temperature." And then, 10 seconds later, you're like, "Oh, it's cold again." And that is a bummer. That annoys me, as it should. But you know what? When you're in the cheapest 1-bedroom apartment that you could find in Denver, the fact that I'm getting warm water at all is pretty nice. So I'm not going to complain about that. But I got back, took a nice warm shower for parts of the shower. It was like half warm, half chilly, half too hot. That's too many halves. That's 3 halves, which, don't do the math. I took a shower, and after the shower, made some coffee. It's nice that I've been doing the 90-minute rule, where I don't have coffee first thing in the morning. I try to wait 90 minutes or so, because apparently that helps. If you have it like right when you wake up, I think it spikes your cortisol levels, and that's like not good. If you wait a little bit of time, then it's you drink coffee and don't have as much of a crash. But it's nice to be able to accomplish some stuff and then still have like a early morning coffee. So I came back and I made coffee, which bought a French press. Not sure if I talked about this in the last episode, but I mean, it's a new purchase. I'm not sure if I talked about buying or thinking about buying a French press, but bought a French press, a Stanley. I've talked about it before, but I'm getting paranoid. The more and more, I wish I could just shut my brain off because I do this all the time. I had a period of my life back in 2013, probably 2013 to 2015, where I was like very scared of microwaves. Not scared, but scared of like, hey, if you're too close, it's probably doing something to you, which honestly it probably is. But I've kind of just accepted that. But for a couple years, I would not get close to a microwave when it was on. I would literally like turn it on and then run into the other room and hide. Which, to be fair, I should probably still be doing that because, I mean, it's similar to a cell phone. You're like, I don't know, whatever magic this is, having it close to my head probably isn't the best, right? Like if you're able to figure something out and you're like, I've made a magic thing, there's got to be consequences. It's like Coke Zero, okay? You're like 0 calories. You're like, yeah, but there's got to be something bad that you're getting from drinking that. There's no way that you can just be like, this is nothing. I just ingested something that's delicious, but it's also nothing. You can't have something and nothing at the same time. And that's a little different from microwaves and cell phones, but I stand by the basic logic of anything that's too good to be true is probably giving you cancer in your head. So I went through a period of being scared of, man, I'm tangenting so far from my points that it took me I literally had to sit there for a second and go, what is my point? What am I even talking about? I got it. I remembered, guys. Don't worry. So I had a period where I was like overthinking the microwaves, and now I'm going through a period of like being paranoid about plastic. I bought some glass Tupperware, which I already had some, but I bought some more because I do have a couple plastic containers, and I was like, I don't want to use those as much anymore. And then for my coffee maker, I talked about this. I got a drip coffee thing because that was metal, and I didn't want to use a plastic coffee maker that I have and just heat water up every single day and probably be drinking coffee. And instead of having a splash of cream, it has a splash of plastic. There we go. That was an attempted structured joke, and that was bad. But you guys get it. I don't want the plastic in my stomach. So what I did is I got the drip coffee, but the drip coffee, it's fine, but it's a little redundant, I guess. If you want to have multiple cups, you have to do it multiple times. And then also the time it takes to like drain the water from the drip to the cup, by the time you drink the cup, it's not like super hot. So it's kind of annoying. So I bought a French press. First French press I've ever bought. It was a Stanley stainless steel thing. I don't know. It came in like 2 days ago. Sorry, I ate lunch right before this and I've got like heartburn. It's not heartburn, but it's like indigestion. Got the burps. But yeah, so it's a French press, and I think it's like a 48 ounce. It's massive. It's way bigger than I thought it was going to be. Which you're probably thinking, Ben, I'm sure that when you bought it on Amazon, it said how many fluid ounces it is. And you know what? It probably did. But I don't, if you just hear like fluid ounces, it's hard to picture what that looks like size wise when it's on your counter. But it was bigger than expected. And that's fine. But it's nice because it keeps it warm so you can make like a big batch. If you're not familiar with French presses, which honestly I wasn't super familiar, so I'm only saying that from the perspective of my own ignorance until recently. But basically it's just you put the coffee grounds into this container and then just pour the water directly in it and like let it soak in that space. And then there's like a little you like have this little kind of filter thing that you push down to the bottom of the container, which basically separates the coffee grounds. For some reason, my brain wanted to say grinds. The coffee grinds, the grinded grounds, separates those grounds from the coffee itself, and then you can pour it out. And with this, hold on a second. I've been sneezing a lot recently, and I'm about to do. Let's see. Oh, is it gonna pass? Oh. You never want to sneeze on the pod, but I will say when you get close to sneezing and don't sneeze, it is a disappointing feeling. Anyways, had the French press. I've gone from drinking no coffee to like a lot of coffee in a very short amount of time. So it was nice. It was nice to start out the morning like that. Here we are, 20 minutes into the pod, and I've just talked about the first 2 hours of my day. That's all I've talked about. But kind of, an interesting week over this last week. I'm trying to get in a better routine with exercise now that my body's in a little better shape. Here's something that I started doing yesterday. This is a very new thing. This is very Ben Dailey-esque. This is very up my alley for how I operate as a human being and how I introduce new routines into my life. But it's something that I am kind of interested in trying out more. I've tried it out a couple times, but I'm interested in like seeing if it helps me in the pursuit of like healthy routines. And what that is transcendental meditation. You guys ever heard of it? So here's how I heard about it. I wasn't seeking anything out. I was just watching YouTube. And there's a channel called Yes Theory, which you're probably familiar with. If you're not, it's like, it's similar to my YouTube channel, but they have like 20 million more subscribers. So, we're pretty much the same, but they just have like content people like, and I have, a podcast that a couple people listen to, and I appreciate that. Okay, we're growing. We're gonna grow. Maybe one day we'll have 20 million subscribers. Probably not. But anyways, their channel is basically like just a handful of guys that like really, I think their phrase that they say all the time in their merch and everything, it's called it says seek discomfort. So like their whole mindset of the channel is just like doing things that make may be uncomfortable but help you grow as a person. So whether that's traveling or whatever it is, there's a bunch of different stuff that they do. But in this one specifically, they were looking into transcendental meditation. I didn't know really much about it, but apparently they visited like the place, the actual place, and I'm not sure where it was. It's Fairfield is the city. I'm not sure what state it is. I missed that part. For some reason, I want to say Ohio, but I don't think that's it. But basically, it's just meditation, and apparently this sect of meditation has like a place you can go to learn. I think there's a university there. I think a lot of people look at it kind of like a cult. It does have a very cult type vibe to it, but I will say after watching the video, I was like, you know what, that does seem interesting. I'm not gonna go like. I think what happens is a lot of people move to this place and like participate in it as a group, like very religiously. And I think that side of things is kind of culty. But hearing basically what it is, if you're not familiar, it's just a form of meditation. I didn't know much about meditation. I thought I did. I realized that I did not. Like, because in the past I've talked about this, but I've done the Wim Hof breathing exercises, which is a form of kind of meditation. You basically breathe really hard. You kind of like, what's the word? I'm like really blanking on words today. You hyperventilate essentially, and that like feels good, whatever the science is behind it. And for meditation, like as easy as just breathing in and out is for like 10 minutes, it's something I don't do that often. Because it really is, you have to like sit down, and then you have to go through the action of breathing hard for 10 minutes. And it sounds so simple, but in practice, it's just enough to be like, well, maybe I'll do that later. And then I just don't do that often. And I thought with meditation, and with a lot of meditations, there's different types, but I thought it was like a mental exercise that's pretty taxing. So it's very easy to just not want to do it. But what transcendental meditation is literally you just sit there quietly and you repeat a mantra in your head, and that's it. Like you don't worry about the results of things or like the outcome or whatever. You just repeat that in your head, and like naturally you'll probably start to think about other stuff, and just recognize if you start thinking about other stuff to go back to saying the mantra. And the mantra is like, I guess they give you specific mantras, or you can come up with your own mantra. But it's I think the one that I found on online or from one video, this guy said he says Shala Om. So it's not like actual words. You don't really want to say actual words because then you'll like think about those things. Like if you're saying like computer desk microphone, then you just be thinking about those things, and that would kind of not help you out in the sense of like calming your mind. So Shalom, whatever, I don't know if that means something in another language, but I don't know what it means. So just repeating that for like 15, 20 minutes. And I've done it the last couple of days. I don't know. It's hard to tell if I've felt much benefit from it, but it's easy enough to go, you know what? I think I'm going to implement this into my daily routine and really see like if it provides any benefits over a longer period of time. Which honestly, this is going to sound crazy, and I'm not like going to die on this hill, or I mean, I genuinely don't know, so I'm not even stating an opinion, but just the thought of meditation, and you hear like Buddhist monks and like Gandhi or whoever, they're like they meditated for so long, they discovered the answers to all of the world's questions and the universe's questions. And it's like, dude, that's silly. That's made up fairy tale stuff. And I'm not saying that now I'm like, oh, that's real. But also, after hearing the science behind it, watching that video and like having some doctors and people like, explain what it's supposed to do, I didn't look through the data, but hearing how basically what they say is it like calms your brain down and lowers your cortisol levels, lowers your stress and anxiety, and just allows you to be more one with. Okay, I'm going to sneeze for real. Whoa, dad sneeze. The older I've gotten, dude, I'm full dad sneeze now. Full dad sneeze, no kids. That's a weird place to be when you're just letting it rip, but you don't have any kiddos. That's I gotta rein it in here. Wait till I have some kids so I can sneeze like a maniac. I've also got like a little congestion, little winter, fall, whatever it's called, whatever season we're in, little sniffles going on. But basically the science behind it is like it lowers your brain activity down and lowers stress, anxiety, all those things, but also like allows you to be more one with yourself. And in that, you're able to like get higher levels of consciousness. I don't know about all that, but what I will say is I think there's maybe an element of truth to that I'd be curious to kind of pursue a little bit and see if it does help. Because at the end of the day, like if we look back 50 years ago, tapping into and understanding your emotions was like not really a talked about thing. I don't think it was a thing that a lot of people did. Like, hey, I'm feeling this way. I'm feeling anxiety. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling stressed, angry, happy, whatever. People didn't look into that too much. Now they do a lot more. And I'll say from a personal standpoint, the more I've done that over the last 15 years of my life, after getting Lyme disease and kind of really having a lot of emotions thrown at me at the same time and having to kind of navigate that time in my life, I think it certainly does help you to be more conscious of like what's going on in your brain. And I think on a similar level, it's kind of hard to explain what I'm even thinking about this, or if my thoughts even make sense. But the more you like try to be zen and focus and calm your brain, it just all goes back, I think, to living a healthy routine and allowing yourself to be as clear-minded as possible to then be able to just make like the most informed, best decisions in that moment and for your life. Like, what do you want to do with life? The more zen you are, the more I think you're able to look at life from a higher perspective and go, this is what I want to do with my life. At the end of my life, I want to be able to say I did this, that, and the other versus when it's real cloudy, you're kind of just like you're just like fighting every second to just like get through the day, and you're not thinking about these grand long-term things. I don't know if that made sense, but I I feel like yeah, long story short, I feel like meditation may be interesting in a path that I'll check out, and I'll report back to you guys, let you know how it's going. But excited to try that out. It does seem like an exciting thing. Here's something I've been doing the last week. Sorry, I've got sniffles. I should have moved my head there. That's going to be an aggressive sniffle into the mic. But here's something I've been doing quite a bit over the last week. I've been playing this new video game called Rise of the Ronin, which I believe is a Japanese samurai-esque thing. Don't quote me on that. It's like a similar but different to a samurai. I don't know. Either way, it's a game, RPG game. You kind of go around, do a bunch of missions. You get this open world thing. You're in 1860 Japan. You got the British, the French, the US. There's a bunch of people, trying to colonize Japan or whatever, for whatever reason. I don't know if it's based on historical stuff. It probably is. But there's a bunch of people there in Japan. You're fighting them off. It's like you got swords, you got different weapons. You got bayonets, spears, double swords, little stabby swords, little big ones, real big ones. But yeah, it's been a very fun game that I've been spending way too much time on, if I'm being honest. But you know what? I was telling a friend this. I was like, you know what? Once or twice a year, I think it's okay to allow yourself to indulge in something where you're like, you know what? For a week or two, I played a lot of this video game. And after that, I chilled out. And here we are again. It's funny because this is the second time this year that I've gotten into a video game. I've been playing a decent amount of Fortnite, but this is like the second game that I've really put a ton of hours in. First one was Ghost of Tsushima, which is a samurai game, which is kind of funny that they're both just Japanese themed sword games. But you know what? I don't make the games. Okay, I don't make the good games. I just play them. There's two good ones that came out that are kind of similar vibes, but actually very similar vibes. Very similar vibes. I said very similar thighs. Thibes? I don't know. I've been mixing words up quite a bit. I've been doing this a little bit in stand-up recently, more than usual, where you like flip the first letter. When you say two words and you flip the first letter of those words and say it, like gluten-free, saying fluten-gree. That's not a great example, but I guess that is an example. Been doing that a lot. I don't know what that means with my brain, but that's got to be some sort of dyslexia, something, brain fart. I don't know. But it's been good. This last week, I've said it over the last couple weeks. I've been working very hard on trying to get some new jokes out there, trying to work on some new stuff, and it's a slow process, but I've been forming some bits out. I'm excited well, let me take a step back. This is something that I think I've found to be a little more difficult and more frustrating over the last year or two with comedy. As you get better at something, you just run into like different issues. It's not just a comedy thing, it's anything. And as I've gotten better at comedy, I've gone from like, hey, let me just like write these little random jokes, whatever happens to be funny. I just write a ton of stuff and like, oh, here's a random thing that's funny. Now I'm more in the mindset of, hey, I want to write things that mean something to me and that are important to me. So things that are happening in my life, things that, stories from my past, just things that matter to me or are relevant to me. And in doing that, I've also like approached a lot of jokes and bits as I want to write this full thing. So for example, a joke I'm working on right now is about my time in Nicaragua. And I've tried to write jokes about that in the past, but again, it's like, hey, this is a year-long period that I lived in a different country. There's a bunch of different stories and experiences, and just like it's kind of a large topic to tackle. And in the past, I've just, here's a minute and a half of bad jokes where it's just like, oh, this random thing, and then this random thing, and then that's my quote unquote Nicaragua joke. Now I'm trying to approach it more from like a, hey, I'm trying to talk about this experience more as a whole. And granted, I could go up there and talk about it for hours. I'm not doing one joke that's hours long or whatever. But instead of like, here's a random 45-second joke, I'm looking at it as like, hey, I used to live in Nicaragua. That was a very cool experience. And then let me go through like multiple things that I was involved with there, and why I went there, and what I learned while I was there, different parts about the country, the culture, things like that. And then from that perspective, you're like, okay, well, that is a larger thing to tackle. So we're looking at more material, and it's just hard to make all of that funny. It's like a larger project to take on, if that makes sense. And that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm writing about Nicaragua and why I went there, and things I learned there. Uh, about the landscape, the volcanoes, the beaches, the lakes, um, my host family. I mean, just a bunch of stuff. And so I'm writing a bunch of stuff that I think is kind of funny, but it's I just have to keep working at organizing it and putting it together, and then obviously memorizing it, because it's like, okay, well, I've got a lot of new stuff, but usually in the past it's like, okay, well, here's like a minute joke. You're like, okay, I still have to memorize it, but it doesn't take that long. Versus like, oh, here's 8 minutes of new jokes, which all build on one another. It's kind of like going through this storyline, or like this path of like, hey, this builds on this, which builds on this, which is just, so memorizing all of it is a larger thing to do. Obviously, when I say like, oh, okay, the 8 new minutes, realistically, 2 minutes of that might be okay. Like, I'm not naive to the fact that most of it's probably not great, but I'm approaching it from a different mindset of like trying to talk about it more in like a conversational, real way than, hey, here's like a random tidbit that is just super random, and it's the only thing I could make funny because I'm not that good of a comedian. That was me in the past. Now I'm better, but it's still very difficult to make things funny. So still not a great comedian, but I'm getting better, guys. Okay. I do feel a lot better. I think I've said it before. I do feel very competent as a host, as a comedian. Like I do have jokes that I'm very proud of, and I do think that um, I do know that I'm building the set out and getting better and better. I just have to keep working through new material. It's very easy to lose a little bit of momentum, and then just be like, all right, I've written 30 minutes of jokes. I'll just coast from here. And then when you coast and you're like, well, I haven't written a new joke in a little while, then literally your brain just like forgets. It's like, how do you write a joke again? And then you just go through that same process of being like, what am I doing? Do I know what I'm doing? It's an interesting process. I do enjoy it quite a bit. But anyways, I've been working on a lot of new jokes, including the jokes about Nicaragua. Uh, if you're not familiar, Nicaragua has like a bunch of volcanoes, like I said earlier, and so I've been trying to write jokes on volcanoes, which then branches out to natural disasters, which then branches out to my experience with natural disasters in the past, whether it's tornadoes. I've dealt with one tornado, I guess, but um, been involved in, been present for a few earthquakes. I guess that's pretty much it. A couple earthquakes, a small tornado, and I've been around. I've hiked volcanoes. I've fortunately never been present when a volcano was getting sassy, if you know what I mean. But working on that, still working on the. I don't know if I talked about it last time. I know I talked about the ants in my apartment quite a bit. I don't know if I talked about trying to write a joke about that, but I feel like I'm kind of forming out a decent joke on that. Still dealing with the ants a little bit. Again, Pest control lied to me. You know, a week and a half ago. Well, actually 2 weeks ago, he goes, "Give it 3 days, they'll all be gone." Here we are 2 weeks later, and they're not all gone. It's like, dude, just be honest with me. Just tell me, hey, I'm gonna spray. You may or may not have some ants later. You might have to live your life for a little while longer with some ants. Okay, I would appreciate that honesty, but to be like, yo, dude, I'm telling you, you will not see another ant in 3 days. Okay, it's like, all right, dude. All right, dude. That's what I called the pest control guy. I said, "What's your name?" And he told me. I said, "I'm calling you dude." I didn't say that. I'm running out of steam, guys. I don't know if you can tell, but getting close to the end of the pod here. Ooh, 1 bar left on the battery. We'll get through a couple things here. So working on the ant joke, got some decent stuff there. What I'll maybe do, and let me know in the comments if this would be interesting. But as I go through kind of new bits in that section of the podcast where I'm kind of just like, hey, here's the jokes I'm working on. Should I pull up the joke itself and kind of workshop it? Would that be interesting to you guys? I know I've kind of talked about it before. Like, oh, here's like a little piece that I'm working on. But if that would be interesting, let me know. Leave a comment on the YouTubes. Let me know. But yeah, coming off of Thanksgiving here. Hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving. I had a chill time here in Denver. So didn't see any family. Got to do a FaceTime with the family. It was chaos at my older sister's house. Everybody met up there. I guess I was the only family member that wasn't there. But everybody was there, and it was funny. My mom called me, and we FaceTimed, and it's just, I mean, at this point, how many kids are there? There's six kids, another one on the way. Yeah, so just, I mean, and all of them are like under 10 years old. So it's just yelling and screaming and chaos. So it was nice to say hello and see everybody, but it's one of those where you're like, all right, well, I'll let you guys get back to the chaos. But I made a gluten-free cobbler, and ate it all. Ate it all. My stomach did not feel good. A gluten-free, sugar-free, which if you guys aren't familiar with desserts and what makes them taste good, but it's sugar. I don't know if you guys knew that, but if you want to have a tasty dessert, it really needs sugar. But I'll say this. I'm not picky. I'm used to eating not good stuff. I enjoyed it. It was good. I mean, anytime I can have a treat, quote unquote treat, I'm excited for it. So that was good. As I usually do, binged it all, ate it all. Stomach did not feel good for a couple days, but what can you do? I ran this morning and I feel better. Okay. Got that post Thanksgiving run in. Got a bunch of fun shows coming up. Bunch of don't tells. I'm going to be going to Nebraska December 14th. Arts and Drafts in Grand Island, Nebraska. It'll be the second time going there. Went there like 2 years ago. It was a very fun spot. Looking forward to it. What else do I have? I'm going to be headlining a Don't Tell December 20th up in Loveland. Excited for that. Yeah, bunch of Don't Tells, bunch of other stuff. I say it all the time. Check out my link tree, which is linked in the bio. There's a link in the bio of my Instagram at Ben Dailey Comedy that has my dates. I haven't updated it. If you look right now, it probably won't be updated, but I will update it. And looking forward to that. One thing I missed, and I talked about this in a long time ago. Look, guys, I'm running out of steam, and I was like, ooh, I'm going on a tangent and kind of rambling, but like, is it funny? Maybe it's kind of funny. Now I'm like, all right, guys, the brain is starting to shut down. The meditation apparently only works for about 42 minutes. And then after that, it's just back to regular Ben. My brain doesn't work Ben. But another story that I'm trying to work on, or a story that I've tried to work on in the past, but I'm rejuvenated. I'm reigniting the interest in pursuing and getting these stories worked out is Catching a Hotel on Fire story. Trying to need to work through that. Need to just go say it a bunch. I was talking to another comic who headlined a Don't Tell show over the weekend. He's a big storyteller. Was talking to him about his process with stories. Just seeing him do very well at the show, and then talking to him, whether it's him or just talking comedy inside baseball, does motivate me quite a bit to go, okay, let's get back into it. Let's get back into the creative process. Let's get the juices flowing. Let's start working through some of these jokes. So that's one that I need to work through, and I'm looking forward to doing that. I've got people just really walking right outside my window. One thing, this isn't super funny, but part of that ant joke is how I just moved into this new apartment, and it's a garden level apartment, which is just a nice way to say basement. Realtors have really gotten loose with their language, and in the pursuit to spin everything into like a nice, cool thing. It's like, okay, I live in a basement. Just call it what it is, okay? We do have words for a reason. You don't have to garden level, as if there's a garden with flowers right outside. No, there's a dude with a Home Depot bucket right outside my window doing God knows what. It's not a garden level. It's a maintenance man level. Looking at them do whatever they're doing. But anyways, yeah, that's, you know what? I'm gonna end it there. I'm reading that book still, almost finished. Children of Time, very good sci-fi. Nobody ever does, but give me your book recommendations. Would love to hear it. But that's where I'll end it. Thank you guys for tuning in this week. Appreciate you guys listening as always, and I'll see you guys again next week.